Hello and welcome. I'm Maria Ressa. We are sitting with the Chief Justice of the Philippine Supreme Court, Maria Lourdes Sereno. Thank you so much for joining us, Chief Justice Sereno.
This is my pleasure. And you know, Rappler has a very dynamic format. So I thought that it would be an interesting experiment to try to communicate using that format that you have provided us. And thank you.
And again, that's part of the, I think, the appeal of this. Well, let's talk about you. You are in office until 2030. In fact, that would probably make you the most powerful person right now. You will be going through a minimum of up to 4 presidents.
Yes.
What drives you? What is your judicial philosophy?
The most important thing that everyone must understand is that the Constitution did not really design governance to be personalistic. In other words, there are very strong fundamental principles embedded already in the Constitution. And if I am going to summarize it in one word, it's really respect. Respect for co-equal branches, respect for the allotted design of powers. And within the plenum of powers in that particular branch, that branch is supposed to be strong. So respect for the coordinate branches of government, but also respect for the lines that should be drawn. And if you are just very careful about that, you're not going to get too lost. I keep on harping back to the intent of the framers of the Constitution, and they wanted really an orderly way of processing things in a democracy that is supposed to be very robust and dynamic, where participation by people's organization will be really strong. But the objectives are also quite clear, quite a very ambitious set of social and economic objectives. And with those objectives in mind, the executive must implement the law, show strong leadership in the areas that have been allotted to the executive department. The legislature is supposed to always be conscious of the constitutional framework and then the statutory abilities that they have to legislate and draw the contours of policy. And then the judiciary is supposed to be actually a passive branch, has actually been given a, by history, by historical accident, a more active role in that the Constitution says that it checks grave abuse of discretion on the part of any instrumentality or branch. So it's quite a powerful statement that the Constitution has made in favor of the 3 great branches. Now, how the interaction is defined, that is really the dynamic part that's very interesting to observe.
You are at the beginning part of this journey now. What are the main problems you see that need fixing?
The first thing that I have been focusing on since I was Chief Justice, and the first major speech, in fact, I gave was that if you can imagine a democracy where all the constitutionally designated offices were to be act professional and independent, then you would not have had this mess about public funds being misspent allegedly in the magnitude of billions of pesos. You don't have belated audit findings decades after the money is no longer available for retrieval. If only we had focused on agreeing to say, these are the rules we had agreed as a people, let's focus on that. So that is my first order of the day, to try to impress upon people the need for a strong, determined march with this structure in mind. So I thought that if I'm going to push for judicial reform, constitutionalism must be at the core of it. But, you know, justice is not really that precisely defined in the Constitution. It is something that must be felt, something that must be experienced by the people. So I have to also design a judicial reform agenda that takes into account present realities. And if I'm going to give you a list of the most important concerns that prevent people from believing that there is justice, it would be delay, congestion, perceived corruption, lack of independence, and an underfunded working system. So those are being addressed right now in the menu of reforms that are being carried out by the Supreme Court. And I keep on encouraging them, look at what is required of us in the Constitution, look at how far we can really go when people begin to trust us. Because I think, admittedly, there has been a shift in the perception of people where we used to be written off.
Correct.
Now, we're being given the benefit of the doubt that perhaps we will find our stride. We will really deliver justice in good time, in the appropriate measure, without overreaching our powers. And this in turn will prove to be the most stabilizing force for democracy. And if we can drill that, then I think that if there is anything, drill that into the hands of all accountable officials, then there would be a certain discipline on the part of everybody. Look, this court is trying its best to discharge its constitutional role, and it is not hesitant to speak up when required to do so. So we had better be careful and make sure that we have taken a good vetting of all our terms of reference before we plunge into something. A very important political decision, a very important decision laying out funds for a major project, a very important policy shift. With this, I think people will get a sense that we actually don't need to be a people that is too sporadic in the way we try to look at our various concerns. We don't just improvise. We know how to plan long term, and we know how to appreciate institutions. And if we emphasize institutions over personality, we have a chance of being a modern nation.
You certainly have the capacity to do that. I mean, when you were first appointed to the Supreme Court, there was a hashtag that went around, hashtag CJ pa si Sereno, and some of them were really funny, like may nakatira na si Mars, hashtag CJ pa si Sereno. Someone or now lives in Mars and she's still the CJ. Yeah. So is that enough time? Do you think you can do this? I mean, a lot of others have tried before you.
Well, the fact alone, first, we don't have, to my mind, a nationwide automation project that has succeeded. And part of the reason could be that the changes in administration for that particular agency that launched the project means that the tweaking of the project will not be accommodated within the short time frame for the implementation. We have time.
Yeah.
For example, the electronic courts right now, by the end of 2016, we might be able to cover already 25% of the total caseload nationwide. Now, if that is not a game changer, I don't know what is. We have right now 52 courts who are going to pilot continuous trial. Can you just imagine? People already will have a sense that their cases are being acted on expeditiously because trials proceed from day to day with just very short breaks in between. This will already signal to people that this is the delay is already going to be eventually a thing of the past. Now, in the electronic court system that we are already implementing, not just piloting, in 4 cities, and we are piloting that in Tacloban as well. Remember, if we succeed in Tacloban, we have a showcase to the world that will demonstrate that a government system in a disaster-ravaged area can rise and be modern because it has been given an opportunity to change its system. In the electronic court system, there is so-called the experience of having an automated hearing. The moment that the judge issues an order on a motion that is heard orally, within 15 minutes, the order is given to the litigants and the counsel. And you don't have to wait for 2 months for that paper order to arrive. You already have the validation that this is a professional court, and orders are issued as soon as they come out of the mouth of the judge. You have it on paper. So there are already stories of lawyers in Quezon City who have written our judges, thanking them that it has been transformational. lawyers who have taken selfies with their automated orders that were obtained immediately. So if the continuous trial succeeds, even at its pilot stage, then just imagine, people will say that we don't have to wait for all the parts of government to be modern. Here at least, when it comes to the dispensation of justice in the courts, there is modernity, there is efficiency, there is an attempt to give justice real time. And this can be sustained because the infrastructure that has to be laid out will take years, of course, to be rolled out in 740 stations nationwide for 2,400 courts. So that's a lot of rollout. So the long term affords me that chance. We are also starting to review our infrastructure master development program. And the point here is that if you want people to believe in the rule of law, you must give them a physical setting for the work that is that conveys the majesty and dignity of the law. And that takes a lot of time to evolve the construction, the development plan for all of these buildings, because they really have to be modern, intelligent, disaster resilient.
So infrastructure. This is where you're being infrastructure. It looks like infrastructure and workflow is what you're looking at.
Yes. Yes.
In terms of this, when you first came in as Chief Justice, did anything surprise you? What is the one thing that most surprised you when you came in?
I think that I had always assumed that there were enough systems, undergirding it that had been formalized. Now I find out that it just evolved. Some of them evolved through informal tolerance, and that not enough of a process review had ever been done. So I think that my being a hands-on manager for many of the institutions I've led afforded me the chance to say, I am not afraid of getting my hands dirty in this. I want to see the numbers. I want to know the workflow. I want to see the personnel complement. I want to see the terms of reference for each personnel. And ultimately, I want to find out if the combination of this is delivering what we guaranteed in our annual promises and reports to the people. So that was a major change according to insiders in the Supreme Court. They said, I don't know, they're saying that I am the first Chief Justice who has ever called a management meeting for all the heads of offices. And then I also called the 3 presiding justices of the 3 collegiate level courts, Sandigan Bayan, Court of Appeals, Court of Tax Appeals, and they likewise said this is the first time the Chief Justice has ever asked us and told us that we have to have a coordinated plan to deliver justice.
It's like a COO. You're looking at the operations.
Our budgeting system is a very modern budgeting process now, very far from what I met when I had my first budget experience in 2013. In fact, the DBM told us that we were one of the first to submit our budget proposal, and we were able to defend, even with hard evidence, our requirements. So I told everyone, you have to defend your requirement for a proposed amount of funding. So everyone is now leading their professional lives with objectives. Would you believe it? Even in the court and bank, we are already talking about the objectives of the bank, objectives of the division, and even individual targets.
And KPIs, like your targets, what do you do? Yeah, what's the important thing that you track?
For one very clear KPI, this is a term that is very new to the judiciary, but I brought it because of my experience in my past life. I want to set as the workable target for every trial court a 300 caseload burden. I have to recognize that they are persons who have to have a work-life balance, their health is primary, they have families to take care of. And I think that with a 300 caseload, it is possible for all of these judges to already conduct continuous trial.
Fantastic. What does that mean, 300 caseload over what period of time? A year?
Pending.
No. pending.
For the entire, that's a lot.
Right.
But right now we have judges who have caseloads as high as 2,000.
2,000, that's...
When I first came in, I heard that there was someone with 4,000 and it was reduced eventually. But there are still several courts that have thousands of cases. Now, we made a proposal to the Department of Budget and Management that in Quezon City, we had a very successful program called the decongestion program,
yes.
the court decongestion program, Justicia. It was funded by a development partner, the USAID, and it resulted in a 30% reduction of the docket in a 14-month period. 30% reduction, and it was a simple formula. You deploy enough lawyers and paralegals in a courtroom to take inventory, a very detailed inventory of all the files with a plan on how to resolve each file. And if the judge already has a management plan for her docket, then you can just imagine that she can actually just implement it. So we had a 30% reduction. So we defended our proposal for case decongestion officers. We're going to hire 600 contractuals. We requested a budget of more than 200 million, and the Department of Budget said yes, because we're going to deploy all of those officers to the most congested courts nationwide until we're able to decrease their caseload to roughly around 300. After that, they will be ready to go on a continuous trial system.
Do you consider this your best achievement so far? What would you consider your best achievement so far?
First of all, the perception that they believe that the Chief Justice is independent. I only go by what is written about me. If that has been written about me, maybe some people believe that. So I thought that is very important. It is important because it is only when a Chief Justice and her colleagues in the court are independent that we can actually have a rule of law regime. And the second would be that all of these reform programs, some of them are on a limited basis,
yes.
have already yielded strong positive results. And the nationwide rollout of these projects has already been approved by the court and bank. So what we just need to do is watch the progress as the years go by. And if I'm going to judge by what I've seen in the courts, in the electronic courts in Quezon City, in Angeles, the transformation of the view of especially the practicing lawyers in the area has been quite dramatic. So you have all of these achievements. We have also small projects that are actually low-lying fruits that just needed to be harvested at the time. I suggested that we use the email system so that we can have the subpoenas of the police officers sent directly by email, and that will bind them already. We have a 97% attendance.
Fantastic.
By police witnesses in criminal cases. So the police witnesses in Quezon City are no longer the problem for delay of criminal cases. Just imagine if a case has to be postponed because the police witness is not there. That will be a prejudice to the accused for another 4 or 6 months because you have to repeat the process of reserving the subpoena to the police.
Yeah.
You just email it, and then there's a memorandum of agreement between the court and the PNP that the moment that it is received in their server, it binds them, and then if the police witness does not appear, the PNP is duty-bound to immediately start administrative proceedings. So because of the fear of sanctions, you have a 97% attendance rate. So those are quite signal measures. Hopefully within the year or next, we will also be able to announce that we have right now, they are already, in Quezon City, it's already an agreement to have a joint calendar for the prosecution, the judges, and the POW lawyers, so that nobody goes off and becomes absent unexpectedly. There is no delay. If it succeeds, then we will announce that in fact it has succeeded. A synchronized calendar system. the theory is very simple. Give first consideration to the accused who is in detention.
Right, right.
And then the other is the single marking system. They are still drawing up the rules. So if we are able to show something there, a single evidence does not have to have different kinds of documentary marking. Now, when it comes to the continuous trial and other rules on speedy trial, like we're also reviewing a small claims court, the judicial affidavit rule has also met with some success, although there are suggestions to revise it. Put them all together and you have a set of approaches to one phenomenon, which is congested courts, delayed trials, and made specifically really aggravated by the fact that 80% of the accused are in detention.
Yeah.
So when you put that all together, you will have people starting to believe that we care.
Move justice delayed, justice denied. What about corruption?
Corruption, what we did is to publicize our disposition of disciplinary cases, whether you have judges, you have lawyers, court personnel. We are trying to find a formula whereby we can do honest-to-goodness investigation without prejudging the ones who are actually going to be under the disciplinary mode that we have. We have been looking at the power of the National Bureau of Investigation and the Ombudsman. We need to strike the appropriate balance. How can we get hard evidence of corruption,
right,
which I had been asking the public to provide, in order to run after the corrupt ones? Because, you know, the culture of impunity is being aided by the thought that it is hard to pin down a judge for a direct act of corruption, because the parties are afraid of whistleblowing, they are afraid of retaliation. So a more innovative solution must be arrived at, and I think that it must be done soon.